Center. He's getting ready to rumble in there. In about 20 minutes, we get into the Drive Time News Hour on the mighty 790. Thanks so much for joining us. So this cold snap, she's so cold. Around here, I don't know how other people look at it. I think we're kind of all the same. We realize that we're going to go through at least one of these snaps every winter. And if we manage to dodge it, great, so be it. But when it hits, we know it's going to hit. I lost 2 vehicle batteries last week, gave them a Viking funeral. So that's how life is around here. But how it has spread out to the middle of the country. We're having a lady who runs an RV park in Amarillo, Texas on tomorrow.
Oh.
And it's cold in Amarillo. It was 16 below in Amarillo, Texas yesterday.
Wow.
And there are people down there living in their RVs over the winter. People from around here got the heck out of here and are now the weather followed them down there. So what happened and what's going to happen? We turn to Mr. Jim Kizer. Jim is a lead forecaster with the National Weather Service in Grand Forks and so kind to join us this afternoon. Jim, how you doing today?
I'm good, Dan.
Good.
It's
Welcome.
above zero, right?
Yeah, well, is it above zero?
It is 0.
Yeah, we got above zero.
Wow, what is it in Grand Forks right now? Is it above zero?
We're at 4.
Wow. Our reading right here, though, this is unofficial, but at our studios we're at 0.
There you go.
Which fits this show.
It's 2 at the airport.
Well, at the airport in Fargo? Wow.
Yeah.
2 above. Holy cow. You can really tell the difference, too. I mean, seriously. I did not zip up my jacket all the way when I jumped out in the car today. And I only let it run for 15 minutes today instead of a half hour like I normally do. Jim, how do you stay warm in this weather?
I try not to go outside.
That's a smart way. It's tough to get to work
Yeah.
that way, but Jim,
Yeah.
well, Jim, I just wanted to ask you today, as an expert with the National Weather Service, did we get hit by the polar vortex? What's happening right now?
Yeah, this is. I can say that. That would be an accurate description. We got hit by the polar vortex.
What is the polar vortex, and how come it's on top of us right now?
Okay, so the polar vortex is the jet stream that rotates around the pole, and it's been displaced. About 10 days ago, we fell below zero, and this was the 4th longest stretch that we've been at 0 or below for Fargo in the history. It's 10 days.
Wow.
And if you want to break it down to hours, it was like 258 hours or so below zero. So there's a fun fact for you that everybody just loves to hear about.
Oh yeah. You're warming us up with that. Yeah.
Yeah, 258 hours below zero. But the polar vortex got displaced and pushed all the cold air that kind of was sitting on the north shore of Alaska down the Canadian Rockies into the northern plains. And we kind of had a secondary surge this last weekend into this week that came from like a Greenland part of the Arctic area. That surged down this weekend, so we kind of got a double whammy from 2 cold air sources, and it's made its way all the way south to the Gulf Coast.
Which is just incredible. Jim, I got into this business because there was no math and things, weren't that hard. So using non-big words, can you explain what knocks the polar vortex from rotating above the pole to kind of come down like a sheet and go across the United States and Canada like it just did? What knocks the polar vortex out of being a vortex above the pole?
Sure. So there's always the Earth's always trying to be in balance. The hot tropics and the cold polar areas, they're always too hot in some parts and too cold in some parts. And we live in that glorious middle ground where we can experience both the hot and the cold. And most of North America lies in that middle ground. Most of Asia lies in that middle ground, and Europe lies in that middle ground. And so you'll hear about these phenomenon and these events occurring across the globe. And it's just a balance that is it's Earth's way of becoming better in balance. It has to spread that cold out. It has to spread that heat out. to be in balance. The ocean currents help drive air masses, and so those are some of the things. Our seasonality, just the tilt of the Earth, and it's winter and it's dark up there in Alaska for 3-4 months of the year, where there's no sunlight. That's going to grow your cold air because you don't have any source of heat. So that's why it happens, and that's how it happens in a layman's terms.
So how rare is Jim Kizer, by the way, is joining us. Jim is a lead forecaster for the National Weather Service in Grand Forks. He's very kindly giving us a few minutes this afternoon to try to explain what we're going through right now. So, Jim, how rare is this that, like, Houston, Texas has below zero temperatures?
Yeah, so that's generational. So you can say once every 30 years, once every, the records are being broken all across the South. So it depends on how long their climate record is, but it's generational, if not more than once every 30, more than once a 50 years. Like it is a historic event. That's for sure.
They're not happy about it happening down there. I was telling a story yesterday. I was in Frisco for the championship game a couple of years ago, and it was in the 40s, 50s. I mean, stuff we'd probably still be wearing shorts around here. And the guy had to leave his house in Dallas and run home because his pipes had froze, which blows me. Underneath his house, it must have been a little cooler than the rest of the air temperature there. But those. I mean, I know you're not a structural engineer or a construction guy, Jim, but I mean, clearly the homes in the southern part of the United States are just not. Their infrastructure is not built like it is here. Correct,
right? Because they don't experience it, so nothing is built to be able to handle it the way it is here. I mean, we're laughing at having to put on our heavy coat for this type of air mass, where they're opening shelters for people in their houses and trying not to start fires to stay warm and whatnot. So yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy that this has occurred. I'm hoping that those people that run those cities are calling cities like Fargo and Grand Forks and Bismarck and Minneapolis and getting advice from people who operate things normally at this time of year, because it seems like they're all kind of losing their mind a little bit. So, Jim, everybody wants to know, is this, now that we're at 4 in Grand Forks, we're 2 in Fargo, is it backing off, or what's our future hold?
Yeah, so it doesn't look nearly as cold as we've had for at least the rest of the month, and then we're getting into March, and it's hard to really get cold in March because our sun angle increases. Our days are longer, so we get more power from the sun. Our snowpack this year is pretty minimal, so those fields are going to. I mean, we got black fields all around Grand Forks. I know Fargo's had a little more snow than we've had. We've only had 12 inches of snow since October 1st up here. And Fargo's had a little bit more than that, but you can see the impact that the black dirt and the soil is having on our temperatures, even in this air mass, even in these cold conditions. So we're going to warm up. This weekend, we're looking at temperatures in the 30s.
Wow.
Our normals for the later part of February, our normal high is mid-20s. By the end of February, we're like 27, 28 degrees. Our outlook for March is going to be a normal March, but we'll probably trend towards warmer than normal because our snowpack is less. And still, in the next 2 weeks, no big storm systems are on the horizon, so I don't think we're going to be adding to that snowpack in the 2 week horizon. So I think we had like almost no winter before this cold snap, and then we had this 10 days of below zero, and now we're gonna quickly rise above normal here for the end of the month. A couple cool downs that last week of the month into March, but nothing cold like we've had, and nothing that is saying that we're going to stay an extended cold into March. So looking at a rather quiet period here after this cold snap.
Terrific. Does this mean that by the weekend the heat returns to Texas?
Yes. I think they'll be in the 50s by the weekend.
Oh, they're going to love that. Boy, well, that's fantastic. Yeah. Jim Kizer, who is lead meteorologist, lead forecaster for the National Weather Service, joining us from the National Weather Service office in Grand Forks this afternoon. Well, that is great news. 30s for the weekend, and we're almost out of the woods with this, and we are, frankly, above zero now in Fargo at 2, 4 in Grand Forks. Jim, that's all really great news.
Yeah, I agree too, Dan. I think if you can survive the 10 days below zero, that's the fourth longest stretch. I can't imagine what 1936 is like. That was 37 days below zero.
I always think of the pioneers, the Native Americans living in a teepee in this part of the world. The Lewis and Clark, when they went through, 1804, 1805, they write in their journals, they were living in those log cabins, and it was like 30, 40 below that winter around here. Trees were snapping and, making sounds like a gun cannon. How did they survive without heat?
I have no idea.
Unreal. Well, thank God they did. Jim Kizer, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, joining us today. Jim, always such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Dan.
You bet. Have a good evening. And stay warm.
You too.
4:53. You're listening to The Drive with Dan Michaels on the Mighty 790 and 104.7 KFGO.